Good evening, everyone. I just finished making the French video and it took 12 minutes, so it feels like it's gonna be a long one. A couple of things though before we get started. First of all, here's the cathedral. Forgot the name, but it's kind of strange because I'm used to sort of, I guess, Christian cathedral. This is a Christian cathedral. I'm used to maybe Catholic cathedrals where there's like benches and everything. Inside, I didn't see a single bench. This is a very open room, so that was kind of surprising. And then all the way over there, there, you have the opera house / theater house. And the thing there is that it's in 3 languages. You have German, you have Romanian, and I think you have Hungarian. It must be Hungarian. And so it's the city with 3 operas, I guess. Apparently it's a record in Europe, and Vienna's not happy with it, but anyway. But more on that later. I'm just gonna sit down. There we go. So yeah, I've been saying the name of the city wrong. It's Timișoara. It's not Timișoara. It's Timișoara. And I woke up this morning. Everybody was still asleep because I went to bed really early. But I slept the whole way through. I think I slept for 10 hours. But just straight through. So yeah, I woke up and I decided to go off and start my day. And weird thing about bakeries here. So I was like, oh, there's a bakery. I'll try something baked. And you know, did not work because I went into the bakery and got yelled at. And then I didn't know. I was like, oh, so I started stepping back, and she made me understand that it was at 10 o'clock. But then I realized I also did a faux pas over here, which is to enter the bakery. All the bakeries I've seen afterward, and so probably that one is the same, because they didn't have a counter, they didn't have, I just went in and I felt like I was in the kitchen already. And it's because they have just a little window that they open and they deal through. So it's kind of like if I stepped into the kitchen. So didn't know that, learned that today. So after getting yelled at, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to go to the botanical gardens, and then there's a mall. I'll try to see, because I'm out of toothpaste, so I'm gonna try to get a small toothpaste, which was successful. But on the way, so the botanical gardens weren't great. It just felt like a park. But then what was kind of interesting is that there's this art installation. It was like #LoveWall, and it's this really big black wall, not really big, just a black wall, and on it there's like little doors that you can open. So imagine it's completely black, but when you open the little window, both sides of that window are a certain color, and they're all like lined up really nicely, and there's not one bit of space that's not covered by a little window, or the window, like what the window would open to. And so then you can just like draw something, or you can like write a message. So I wrote hello, and I was quite happy with myself, and I try to write different things. The only problem is though that the wind comes and closes and opens the little windows on their own, so you have to go really, really quick. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with that, and surprisingly not a lot of people doing it. I was on my own, because I had to discover what was going on my own. Of like, oh, like these little windows you can open and it makes color. So I was quite happy with myself, but nobody else was doing it. And then a group of high schoolers came, and then they went nuts. They, like for 5 minutes they were just like opening and closing everything in sight. Then they left and it got quiet again, so I got the chance to do it. But yeah, then I went to the mall, did what I had to do, no problem there. Then in the afternoon, it was time to do the tour. So I registered for a free walking tour, and actually we met. So I had only visited one part of the city, of the old city, but turns out this is another. Never, like, I hadn't even seen it before, and it was the important one, I guess. And so yeah, we met right in front of this church. I think it's an Orthodox church, but I can't remember exactly. I think because there's 3 different sort of Orthodox here. There's Serbian Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, and I'm guessing Romanian Orthodox, and that must be it. But I don't know. It's a lot of different religions. Or there's also a Catholic church around here. Anyways, there's just a lot of, not competing religions, but different religions all at once. So yeah, we met on this square, and I went inside, and like I said, it was strange because there was no pews, nowhere for people to sit down. And yeah, we learned, so I have 5 facts about Timișoara. The first thing is that, so Ceausescu was the communist dictator over here, and so annoying, my hands get tired. Side note, sorry, for the last video, I completely forgot to mention that yesterday, sure, I did 115 kilometers, which I've done before, so that's not that bad. But the problem with yesterday was that it was really windy. Like, it's still quite windy, not as bad as yesterday, but that's why it took so long. I just felt like I moaned and whined a lot yesterday, and it didn't make sense because it's not that bad. But no, it was a lot of wind, that's why it was bad. Okay, side note over. So yeah, Ceausescu was the dictator, communist dictator in Hungary, and his wife Elena, I've heard, is just as bad, or was just as bad. And so, I lost myself. Yeah, and then Romania was one of the last places in Europe that still had like a communist dictatorship, like everybody else had gotten rid of theirs. And he held on really, really firmly, and he was one of the most brutal communist dictators ever. Oh, some people are taking pictures, I might be in their way. Oh, so it started, so every other country had gotten rid of theirs, and in 1989 a priest that was working over here, and actually still lives in a street over there, made a speech, I think on TV, about freedom. Like, he's basically promoting freedom, and Ceausescu did not like that and arrested him, which made a lot of protesters come over here. And so Timișoara is their claim to fame is that this is where the fight began. Like, this is where they really like stood up for their rights and for democracy. And from those like hundreds of protesters, the army just shot them, and 20 children were killed, which made things even worse. And so more people showed up the next day, and actually you can still see, you can't see it on this video, but on this building here, on the 6th floor, yeah, right where my finger is actually, right there, there's still some bullet holes of bullets. And then on top of that building as well. So yeah, so it just turned violent really quickly. And then, so that was the one massacre, and then the second massacre was the people in the hospital, so the people that were shot but weren't dead went to the hospital. And then they disappeared from the hospital and were found in Bucharest in a mass grave. And even to this day, they don't really know who did this or why or what was going on. Timișoara calls itself like the birthplace of democracy for Romania. Like, this is where it actually started. And then Ceausescu was ousted on the 24th of December, and that's why Romanians call it like the best Christmas ever on that 25th. Second little fact, so that was one fact, the others are quite a lot shorter. Second little fact is over here, you have a column with a statue on it, and it's Romulus and Remus, so the, I guess, founders of Rome, and it was given to Romania by Mussolini, and Romanians don't really like that anymore, and I'm not sure if they ever liked it. But they don't want to be connected with it. The only problem is on the stone, like on the base, it says Mussolini. And so instead of replacing it or like having a big debate whether they should get rid of it or not, they let the plants grow. And so now there's ivy growing all over the base of the statue. And you can't see the name anymore. You still have the lovely wolf on top. The opera, I forgot to mention. So side fact, like, doesn't count as my 5. Don't count that one. But on the opera, so I don't know if you can see it. You'll see it on the pictures on Instagram. But the opera over there, it's a really lovely building. And then you have this really ugly added part to it. Because that was Ceausescu's place to say any speeches for Timișoara. And so a lot of people wanted to get rid of it. But it's also the place where they declared Timișoara free of Ceausescu and of dictatorship and just democratic. So people are like, yes, it was bad, but it's also where we gained our freedom. So they're on the fence. Oh, right. We also saw a synagogue. We didn't go inside because of the 6 synagogues in Timișoara, none of them are functional anymore because there's not enough Jews left. Right, but the synagogue was interesting is that the only evidence on the whole facade that it was a synagogue is at the very, very top. The 10 Commandments are written in Hebrew. Nothing else. And so he described a couple of things that are usual about a synagogue. So usually a synagogue is, I think he said a hexagon or maybe an octagon. I'm not too sure. But this one is rectangular, like a church would be. Also, usually on a synagogue, you need to have the Star of David on all faces. This one doesn't have a single one on the front. And he also said that, oh right, and then on this synagogue, there's like 2 big towers, as you would have on the front of a church. And synagogues usually don't have it. And apparently, it was made, oh, I'm very jittery tonight. It was made so that people could like not target it as much, being like, well, this kind of looks like a church, like let's not demolish it or anything. It didn't really work, but it's still there, so I guess it worked in a way. But yeah, that was the synagogue. Then, oh right, so we went to get coffee. We had a coffee break, and after the coffee we went to this house, and he pointed to something on the house, and he's like, what is that? Is that a ball or is that a hole? And it's true, it was a bit of an optical illusion. You couldn't tell if it was something that was coming out or something that like had made a hole, and you could just see a really nicely done hole. And I voted for a ball, and I was right. It was a cannonball. And he's like, what you need to know is that during times of war, if your house was bombed, you didn't pay taxes on it anymore. And so we're like, okay, so this house was bombed. He's like, no, this house decided that it was gonna fake being bombed, put a cannon in the wall, say, oh no, we've been bombed, we can't pay taxes anymore, but really like not being bombed without any of the damage of it. I don't remember if it worked or not. I don't think he mentioned if it worked or not, but that was their plan. It must have worked because they still have the cannonball there. And the last fact I have for you, what is that? Oh right, the Palace of Justice is not too far from here, and it has a lot of windows. Apparently it has more windows than days of the year, so it has more than 365 windows. And the reason behind it is just to be like, justice should be transparent. Like anybody should be able to look inside the Palace of Justice and understand decisions made by people of justice. Side note about justice, Ceausescu's trial lasted 2 hours. And I think he explained that might have to do with it, that like a lot of people didn't say it was a fair trial. It was just 2 hours. Somebody said, all right, he should be put to death, and that's it. So yeah, that's all the facts about the tour. After the tour, he said he recommended 2 things. One of the things I heard about and I wanted to do after the tour was the Communist Consumers Museum. That sounded interesting, and it was, from what I heard, it was just a bunch of sort of communist objects in one room that you could kind of look at. And the second thing was where to eat, and he said that next to that museum there was a restaurant that did like local food, and he talked especially about a cow stomach soup. So I was really interested in that. And so that's exactly what I did. I went to the Communist Consumers Museum. It wasn't great. It was just, the way I describe it is that it felt like people had gone to a garage sale during communist times and took anything that was unsold, just piled it up and put it into 2 rooms or 3 rooms. And so you had a lot of repeating objects. You had a lot, like you had 3 TVs, and I was like, I doubt people in communist times had 3 TVs. And so it gave you a range of things. It did give you like a practical idea of what life was like. I would have liked it way better if it was like, no, like somebody, if a communist, if somebody from communist Romania came here, they'd be like, yeah, that's how life was like. But no, it was really rooms that were crammed with objects, rather than like an accurate representation. So I guess it was good if you knew what the objects were, but just looking around, it was just, yeah, that's a lot of objects. Like, you don't really know what you're looking at. But it was worked by donation, so it kind of made sense. But anyway, and then I went to the restaurant, ate my soup, was quite happy. It didn't taste as strange as I thought it would. The texture was a bit weird, but I think it was weird because I knew what it was. Had someone told me like, oh no, it's just pieces of meat, I would have been fine. That's about it. Oh right, so our tour guide Fetis, I don't know if I mentioned, he's from Syria, and he's been studying here for 7 years, and he's really into biking. Like we were talking, and I told him about my bike, and he said, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And then he recommended, because I told him like, he's like, how are the Romanian roads? And I was like, oh, they're terrible. Like, I haven't seen a single bike lane until I came to Timișoara. He's like, oh, okay, you should go, and I need to remember the name of the city. But he's like, there's a really long bike lane all the way to the city. Use it because it's on your way. Like, he sounded really positive about it. So that's what I'm gonna do tomorrow. I'm gonna use that. But that's, yeah, so he was really kind and a really good tour guide. Yeah, unlike the person in Budapest, like we had several stops, like even from here to the opera we had like 5 stops, so it was a little bit of walking, a little bit of talking, a little bit of walking, a little bit of talking. But yeah, that's about it. He did give me an idea for a book. So there's 4 Nobel Prize winners from Romania, and one of them talked about like this, wrote about a book on like the secret police of during communist times, and he's like, it's interesting, but it's really heavy. He told us that even he had to put it down, and like even though it's like he's from Syria, so it's not really related to him, but he's like, no, it got really, really, really bad. So that's an idea maybe, but I'll see. No, otherwise that's pretty much it. Yeah. So tomorrow I'm gonna make my way over to Serbia, and I'll see where I'll end up. I'm not sure exactly. I'm trying to do 100 kilometers tomorrow, but I'll see where I end up. Alright, have a good night.